these books, the characters didn't just resist racism or slavery, they got revenge. I'm Adrian Lowe. I talk about books, culture, and everything else related to Black people on my page. Please like and share this video, but also please be sure to subscribe to the page if you're into that type of content. Today I want to talk about these 3 books and explain why I enjoy reading them so much and the things I learned from them and how they impact my understanding of America and also our story and the way in which we talk about slavery in this country. So today I want to talk about 3 books I've been reading lately that I've really been enjoying. First of all, I can't say enough good things about James. James is one of my all-time favorite books. I think it's maybe my favorite book by Percival Everett now. It is just like that good. It's an amazing book. And I think if you haven't read it already, you definitely should grab a copy. But I also want to talk about the nonfiction works, The Fires of Jubilee, which chronicled Nat Turner's rebellion against slavery in Virginia in 1831. Which was kind of at the precipice of the country's beginning to wrestle with the idea of slavery, fugitive slaves, and the end of, the fall of slavery in the country would come shortly 30 years later. But rumblings would start around this time period. And I also want to talk about Ring Shout, which is a dark Gothic Southern horror mystery, which makes the Ku Klux Klan an actual monster that's haunted by Marcy and her group of friends, resistance fighters that are hunting the Klan in southern Georgia, down in Macon, and I think that may be actually eastern Georgia. But yeah, let's talk about these books and why they're so good. Starting off with James, man, I can't say enough good things about James. I truly believe that Percival Everett should have won the Pulitzer Prize for James. James is, I think, the work of a lifetime. I really do believe that his ability to capture so many important parts of like the Black experience and things that are relevant today in America, like passing, that were relevant after, I guess the time period of slavery, but passing, the way in which like some of the characters recognized a Black person when white folks couldn't, but also the impossible decisions that James had to make, the people that he had to rebel against, because the institution of slavery not only affected and infested the minds of white people, but also Black people too. And so his resistance and his desire for freedom, not only in his fight for freedom, his desire to get revenge sometimes had to encompass and relate to not only just white people, but also Black people as well. And so that was super dope to kind of like see and understand and experience. Without spoiling the book, I'll just say that there's a portion in the book where James something clicks for James, and he has to decide about like how he's going to continue to pursue his freedom and also reclaiming the freedom for his family, his children, his wife in the story. And he gets the opportunity to really like decide the fate of someone, and he gets revenge. He gets revenge in multiple instances, actually, for people who have wronged not only him, but just who have wronged Black people in general by choosing to enslave or choosing to do Black folks wrong. And some of his choices are subtle and subconscious, but some of them are overt. And I thought that Percival's way of weaving it into the story and weaving like a revenge narrative that is not so on its face into the story was really, really dope and amazing to see. And if you're someone who wants to read and enjoy like historical fiction about slavery that doesn't feel overly sad or overly trying to compensate for or overly trying to explain and make like Black people feel subjected and sad about slavery and like there was no rebellions or resistance, I think you should check out James in general. But also it is great just because it's a rebut to Huckleberry Finn. People always ask you have to read Huckleberry Finn first. I haven't read Huck Finn since I was in like middle school, but I remember the story and I remember, the Tom Sawyer books as well. So I think you can read it again before you read this, but I don't think it's required because this story is a story about James on its own, and Huckleberry Finn is a character in it, an important character in it, but he's not the leading character. He's a supporting character, whereas Jim was supporting in The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. But yeah, James was everything. I'm still reading Ring Shout by P.D. Clark, and it's good thus far. It is a story about Marcy and Chef and Sadie, who are hunters of Ku Kluxes and the Ku Klux Klan in general in Macon, Georgia. And Ku Kluxes, even if you read the description, right, this is written in a way that it doesn't frame it to really explain what is actually happening in the story. Ku Kluxes are actual monsters in the story, and they're being hunted by resistance fighters, by Marcy and her crew, and also Gullah women and people who are practicing Black religious communities in the Deep South, native to the Carolinas and to Georgia and things like that, like the Gullah Geechee people. But this is also a fun read because it is distinctly Black. The dialect is so Southern, and it's also refreshing in that seeing him incorporate true historical references, like things like referencing Ida B. Wells and her channeling and chronicling of slavery across the country in his works, and also his understanding of just like Black culture in the South in particular and how people connected. Like, this to me feels like reading Sinners. Like, I feel like if you are an enjoyer of the book Sinners, you'll really like Ring Shout, and you'll enjoy the type of like fiction work that this is, because it's particularly Southern, but it also is very, very easy to visualize while you're reading. And it's nice to have a story that kind of makes a fictionalization of how awful the Klan was and how awful the Klan is, rather. But it also kind of is rewarding to see these people being the hunters being the hunted. And so, yeah, I've enjoyed reading this. I probably will wrap this up soon. It's only 186 pages. I read like 80 the first day, so I'm probably going to wrap it up one day. I know when I pick it back up again, I'm going to want to finish it. So I'm trying to take my time. But yeah, I'm going to probably knock it out today. Then finally, The Fires of Jubilee by by Stephen Oakes, is an accounting of all the information of the actual rebellion led by Nat Turner in 1831 in Virginia. And I think this is an important book to add to the conversation, because so many times we do have conversations about rebellion and slavery. And I think the guiding post of the conversation is that, like, the framework or the idea that slaves didn't rebel. But this is an accounting of the fact that they did. And also, rebellion didn't always look as violent and as loud as this, but rebellion was an everyday act, and seeds were planted for people to think about how to push back against slavery institutionally, but also in a micro way every single day across the country, right? Everywhere where slavery existed. But this book itself is a good accounting of everything that led up to all of the responses to Nat Turner's rebellion, and kind of the thrust and some of the laws that came as a consequence of it. But also, it just kind of speaks to the power that Nat Turner had, and the fear that white slave owners really had about more uprisings of the like, where people would really kind of come to terms or come to grips with how bad slavery was and want to do something about it. But yeah, if you're interested in reading and expanding your knowledge about slavery and or Jim Crow America, all of these books are informative and they're historical fiction. But what I appreciate about Black authors who are scholars themselves is that, especially James and P.D. Clark in these two books, Percival Everett and P.D. Clark rather, in these two books, they don't take for granted the fact that they know they are informing an audience about subjects that they may not otherwise be exposed to in their writing. So I appreciate the sincerity and the level of thought they put into making sure that this fiction work is historically relevant and accurate. So a lot of the things that you read in here are going to be things that are informative about like slavery and the experience of Black folks in general, but it also is real life, even though the story itself about the person is fiction, the main characters are fiction, but what was happening in the non-scientific context and Ring Shout, and also in the non-personal context of James as it happened to like him as a person, it was happening to slaves across America. And this kind of just brings it all together with the real accounting of rebellions and revenge stories in America. If you enjoyed this type of videos where I kind of just talk about things in a more personalized way, I hope you let me know in the comments. I'm also curating a playlist for Ring Shout and James, music that came to me as I was reading the book and what songs like I would kind of associate with certain chapters or certain parts of the book. And I'm also going to be writing something more substantive on Substack about both of the books, a full book review for both of the books, or like a read and wrap up about everything I read and kind of how all those things come together and shape my understanding of Late, which will be published sometime at the end of July. So subscribe to me there. Also, be sure to follow me on TikTok, Instagram. Here, please subscribe, and share to this video. I'd really appreciate it. And yeah, those are all the things. I'll see y'all next time. Love and light. Peace.